you doing?
Mr. Pittman, I'm doing good. How you doing?
Things are going swell.
That's good, man. I catch you at a good time.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Man, last week was brutal, man. I was having like 12, 14-hour days and, trying to get in and trying to keep everything going and trying to keep some coals in the fire, man. But we needed to get around to this Haney and the Lomachenko talk, and I had looked up some stats. So what's your ideas on these on this Devin and Lomachenko? Because it's starting to build up. What's your take on it right now?
Well, I think it's gonna be somewhat of an uphill climb for Lomachenko. And the reason why I say that is because Lomachenko is in the latter part of his career right now. And Haney is so young and he's just so hungry right now. I think the size, the height, I think it's going to pose a problem for Lomachenko. Haney has the ability of having a good jab and keeping opponents to a certain distance. And because of the height difference in the two fighters, I think it's going to be somewhat difficult for Lomachenko to get in the inside where he can do some work. If he's able to do it, then that will change a lot of the complexity of the fight. I think it's going to be a difficult task for him. But he's a former champion, a former pound for pound guy. He may be able to figure it out, but I think it's going to be a tall task for him.
So you think it's going to be, you think Loma is on an uphill battle?
I really do. And this is going to be a tough fight for him.
Yeah, I can see it. He's sounding confident. I'm seeing everything. When I look at them inside the ring, it's kind of hard, man. I keep flipping a coin on it. I keep saying, man, Devin should be able to. But I said, man, you know how we do over here. I said, man, let me look at these stats and let me see statistically, where we can go with this. And I think these stats say that this fight is going to be a lot closer than what people think. Let me run down a couple, and you can feel free to jump in or chime in in any one of these that I read off. According to Compubox, in the plus or minus, Haney is at Loma is at a plus 17.5, and Haney is at a plus 12.3, and so Loma got that one. On the total punch connect percentage, Loma is number 3 behind David Benavidez and Triple G. Devin's not on there. Now, these categories I was looking at was the Compubox statistical leaders category. So Loma is number 3 behind Benavidez and Triple G on that total punch. On the number of jabs landed per round, Lomachenko is at 6.5. Devin isn't on that one. On the jab connect percentages, Devin is at 24.8% and Loma is at 24.3%. So they right there. Devin got Loma by about 0.5%. On the power connect percentages, Loma, surprisingly, this one surprised me. He's number 2 behind Tank at 47.5, by 0.2 tenths behind Tank on the connect percentage rate. He's number 2 power punches connecting. Haney isn't on that one. On the average opponent landed power punches, Devin is at 7.8. Loma isn't on this one. So when it comes to power punches landed by opponents, Devin is on here on the fewest at 7.8. He's on that list. He came in, you know, on that list at 7.8. Loma's not on there. On opponents' lowest total connect percentages, Loma is at 18.5% and Haney is at 19.6%. So Loma got that one, but it's only by 1.1% on that one. And when it comes down to opponents' power punch, the lowest, Devin is 4th on the list at 24.2, and Loma is at 25.7, with only the only fighter, David Benavidez, between them two on that list. So this list, like, statistically, man, like, because and the reason why I like getting into this part of it is because, you know, when it comes to everybody's favorite and they're talking, they kind of over embellish or oversell one over the other. Like, it depends on who has a liking to each other. Like, neither one of these are dogs in the race for me. You know, I believe Devin should win, but I want to look at these statistics and actually really look and see where we at. And it looks like this fight statistically is a lot closer than what people would think. What you think about any of that?
Oh yes, definitely. When you look at the stats that you just presented to me, it definitely puts this fight almost at an even keel. You know, it is one of the determining factors in this fight is probably going to come down to who wants it the most, who puts forth the most effort to actually win this fight, who can stay determined, who can stay strategically onto the game plan, and whose conditioning can carry them into the later rounds of the fight, and who can sustain their game plan. So based on the stat information, yes, it put this fight really close. Mm-hmm. But the determining factor is going to be who wants this the most and who can stay courageous and stick to the game plan and don't falter, and also conditioning. Now, both of these guys tend to be in good condition. You know, I've never really seen either one of them just start to fold and can't endure, you know, the battle fatigue of a fight. It's just that you got to stick to the game plan. Lomachenko, whatever his plan is, he got to initiate it from the beginning, and he's got to stay with it. He can't get off target, because if he do, that will allow Haney to dictate the action of the fight. Because if the fight is totally dictated by Haney and he's able to keep the range and choose whether to engage, move back, if Lomachenko can't offset him and cause this to be a fight, a brawl, then it takes away from his ability to kind of, you know, dictate the way this fight gonna go. He's gonna have to find a way to get into the inside. Don't let Haney use his height, his length, his reach to dictate the fight. He's got to make this fight a brawl, but he has to be careful, because he's gonna have to work his way into the inside, and he's gonna strategically have to do it. And without having a plan and being able to execute it, it's gonna make this a tough fight for him.
Yeah, I can see that. Now, let me ask you something. Did you see any of the did you look at any of the Blood, Sweat, and Tears episodes?
Yes, I did, and I'm gonna tell you the truth. I think it was a good promotional video, because it gave you a little insight on both fighters, and it just showed that, you know, this fight, as it's getting closer, is gonna build up the enthusiasm and and the fans wanting to see this fight. So I thought it was an excellent video, especially for a fight promotion.
Yeah, I liked it. The only reason why I asked is because Loma, he keeps going back to saying that this always been his dream. He wake up with this dream. He go to sleep with this dream. He had a bite at this apple. You know, not gonna get into the politics of it, but he had a chance with T.O. And you know, Devin's been just doing what he need to be doing as far as putting himself into position. And now, you know, I find it's wild that I hear a lot of people over embellishing about Devin and what he's been able to do up until this point. I don't. I look at it, I respect what he's been able to do because he put himself in position to get the belts. My thing is this. I think this is the biggest fight of Devin Haney's career. You know, I think that this is, like you said last time, this is Lomachenko's last bite at the apple. You know, and I think he spoke to it. I think it was either him or Aegis. They spoke to it and basically said the same thing you said, as far as they know that they don't have another shot. So, you know, I'm looking for, if the fight gets tough and gritty, I'm looking for Loma to sell out on this one. Now, what I can say is there are two blueprints as to how to beat Loma. There's not a blueprint right now as to how to beat Devin. What I believe in my heart of hearts is, yes, he has to do his thing with that jab, you know, which they're not too far apart from each other, but he has to come back behind it with that jab. And I think that Devin has to be accurate. You know, Loma, he's always known for those angles, you know, the movement from the side to side. He changes levels. He goes to the body and he comes up top. And I think that I'm looking for Devin to have more of a variety. At first I was saying, man, he gotta stop him. Like, that's just me in my heart of hearts as far as taking control and what I want to see, like a statement, like for you to be the, you know. But Devin, in order for him to be great in this fight, he doesn't have to stop Loma. Like, I was thinking that, but he doesn't. What he needs to do is he needs to put on a clinic, and he needs to make it clear on the scorecards, because we've seen what happened this past weekend. And, you know, my theory is, when you stop somebody, when you make somebody quit in the stool, when you make a referee stop it, or when you make a corner throw in the towel, that takes it out of the judge's hands. So what I don't want is for Devin to do exactly what he needs to do, and then they render a judgment. And because the powers that be really want Loma to have those belts, he get robbed. So I think he needs to put on a performance, and he needs to be accurate and on point so much that it's a clear separation. You see what I'm saying?
I understand exactly what you're saying, because you and I have seen it so many times where at the end of a fight, we think that a fighter has won this fight handedly, only for it to be taken away by poor officiating. So definitely he needs to make a statement, and he needs to dictate the action in this fight. And he's got to have a situation where, if he could put Loma in a situation where Loma needs a knockout to win, then he can cruise in for maybe a unanimous decision. But you don't want this fight to be a split decision, because if the fight is that close, it legitimizes the officials to call that fight in whatever manner they want to call it. You know, as long as it's not a split decision and it's a unanimous decision, I can live with that with Haney, because, you know, Lomachenko just, you know, he doesn't get knocked out. You know what I mean? So for Haney to stop him, he would actually have to, you know, put on a real good performance. But you don't always can end a fight with a stoppage or a knockout. That's when you have to really be convincingly the winner, you know, within the eyesight of the officials. You know, you want to score at least a unanimous decision, because a split a split decision can go either way.
Yeah, you leave yourself up to perils. You know what I'm saying? They can justify that. They will justify it. You know, or they'll, you know, try to, or you'll get a draw when you dominate it. But yeah, unanimous. Now let me ask you something else. We know how Devin has been looking. He's still growing. I think he probably got at least a half a year to a year left in his potential to be able to grow. But you know, we also see how he is at the weigh-in, and he's always shown, well, here lately, the last 2 times when he came in and he looked the way he looked at the weigh-in, he's still been able to rehydrate and still put on a dominant performance, albeit against George Kambosos. With him, you know, having grown some more in between the last fight and this one, and him having to cut back down to that 135 weight limit, you know, is that a factor?
Well, I'm gonna say right now it's not a factor, and I believe that to be true because of the youth that Haney has right now. He's still young, you know, and when you are young, you are able to do things, and it seems to fall in place a lot better than when you become older and you're struggling to make a weight. When you're younger, you tend to be able to do these things with minimum difficulty. And because Devin has been fighting at 135, it's not like he went to 140 and started fighting at 140 and then gonna face an opponent because the politics and the business is good, and you're gonna decide that, whoa, I'm gonna drop down, I'm gonna go back down to fight this guy. That, I think, is more of a problem than him fighting at 135 where he's already fighting at. So him fighting at 135, making 135, and then rehydrating up, this is what he's been doing all along. So therefore, there's no reason for me to think that he can't do it in this fight. This is what he's been doing all along. Somewhere down the line, he probably will go to 140 because he's got the size and the range for it. But I don't think making this 135, defending his title, to which he is, you know, undisputed, it shows that he's able to do that. So until a situation arises where it's too difficult for him to make the weight, I think he's fine. I really do. I think he's going to be fine in this fight.
And look, and surprisingly enough, I actually agree with you, because when I was watching that Blood, Sweat, and Tears, right, and they were looking at his, the guy, I guess this is the guy that is responsible for his nutrition and stuff like that. He pointed out that they eat all the way to the scales, which I'm like, oh, that's insight. That's valuable information. That's something that's not like when you heard about, like, because it was one time they did one with Bud, and he was saying that he would not eat for 2-3 days. Well, his nutritionists, they have him on a plan to where he eats all the way to the scale. There are no days where he's just sitting around not able to eat, which I think that says a lot, because if he was really truly starving himself to make it, then that's one thing, but he's still eating. So that's probably why he can, they got it down to a science, man, and they seem like they got it down. So I really don't think that's going to be a factor either. Before, I was wondering, just because when you see him and how gaunt he looked, you know, you would think, man, did he starve himself? But he's actually eating all the way to the scale. But the other thing, one thing that kind of won me over, man, like a little bit, was the grandma piece, man. I think that was like, man, whoever planned that out, that was a nice piece, man. When she was talking about how Devin was in there and he was, you know, they was at church and he saw the pastor here and he asked her, when do I get to go up there and talk? So that says too that he's always been seeking the big moments. So, because that was a question I had, you know, because I believe we would say that Devin has been, that Loma has been on the bigger stage more so than Devin, I would say, because of his record and the level of fights, you know, even though Loma doesn't have as many fights, I think I was questioning, who was the stage bigger for. But clearly from a youth, let his grandma tell it, he's been looking for the big moments. And then he also said with her battle against cancer, he's doing it for grandma. So that kind of tugged at the heartstrings. I'm like, man, he got to win this. You know what I'm saying? It's his time. And that sets up what I really want, which is Tank against Devin. But it's still a task at hand. I don't believe that Loma is coming in there to lay down, and I would put him skill-wise a grade above Kambosos. I would. And also him being a southpaw, I think that comes into play because you got orthodox against southpaw. You got the head clash. You're going to have to see the battle of the footing, in which you always want to kind of maintain the leverage with the outside foot and all that. So you're gonna see a chess match within a chess match on this one. So that's some of the things that I picked up from that Blood, Sweat, and Tears episode, the last one.
Yes, and see, like I alluded earlier, I think that Blood, Sweat, and Tear video is a catalyst for building up enthusiasm, because I made the statement that I think it was good for, promoting the fight, and listening to what you just explained about what you took from it also shows that your enthusiasm has moved a notch, because you saw something in there that you really liked, and it just, it almost puts you in a position where, well, everything's been said. I'm ready to see these guys fight. So that type of video, that's what it's intended to do. If a pre-fight video does not build up any enthusiasm for you to see the fight, then the video itself has stale. So I think that video had all the components that anybody that's looking forward to this fight, I think that video will help you, get to the point where you're ready for fight time.
Yeah, it did. It was how the appetizer is designed to whet your appetite in preparation for the steak and the potato. They give you the salad, they give you the breadsticks, you get the soup, and then you get the meat and potatoes. So yeah, they did do a good job. The only small little thing, if I had to be nitpicky, is that Devin still was kind of trying to make it personal. That's the only thing. And I saw that Loma, it's just like, I don't know what he talking about, 4 years ago and this and that, and said that, because Devin was saying he made him mad and this and that, which again, I think that caters to the branding. Because I always said, man, I think that Devin will have a lot more fans, and I think that his fan base will grow even more if they didn't try to brand him like this. Almost, they kind of try to give him a bad boy image, and Devin's not. He's the wholesome All-American kid, and I think that if they stepped into that realm of his branding, where they branded him like the wholesome guy, the guy from the 2-parent household, the guy who didn't have to do this, who wanted to fight, almost like how Earl Spence is, like he's a bad boy because of what he do inside the ring. But when you look at his background, 2-parent household, well-to-do family that wanted to fight, didn't have to, could have done different things. If they tap more into that market, he would resonate with more people who also came, because you got football players that were like that. Everybody didn't have the Tank Davis or the background like myself or something like that. They didn't have that split household and stuff like that. I think that if they stepped into that, his fan base would grow, because I know I might come off like I don't like him, but I really don't like the things that his fans say. So I find myself contending with his fans or content creators who, I say these outlandish things, but when I look at the core, Devin is a good dude. He's a good young man. He's a smart young man. In my boxes to watch, I haven't done the thing, but in my boxes to watch collection, he's called the professor, because I think that he's the smartest one out of the young crop. Never missed weight. He's played the game politically, and he's positioned himself. Him and his father, like it or not, how it happened, and the respect they gave other people, like it or not, they've positioned themselves to be the go-through, because at the end of the day, all people see really is who has the belts. You know, he has them, and he has a fight in his hand. So I think that, you know, I think this might be the beginning of it if they go that way as far as his branding. But it's a big moment for him, and I think he got what it takes. You know what I'm saying? I just think that it's going to come down to Devin showing us a plan B or a plan C. I don't know if he's going to be able to just rely and just stick back and hang out there with that jab, especially with Loma having this almost like a desperation. He know that clock is ticking. He ain't no spring chicken. And I think that he knows that it's now or never for him.
Yeah, when it comes to Devin and his personality wise, I think he has a good, wholesome personality. And as a fighter, you know, sometimes a fighter just in his delivery tends to be very arrogant or seems to be very confrontational at times because they are fighters. You know, but you know, Devin has a pretty even keel, and that makes him likable in terms of when he's in front of the camera and you listening to him talk. I think that when it comes to the Haney camp, if there is anybody that says things that are contrary and to me that are negative, it's his father. His father is the one that's, you know, saying stuff, and then you look at him as like, you know, and I'm saying to myself, yeah, I know your son is a good fighter and you promoting him, but sometimes I think his dad is so overly involved that he almost takes away the stage from Devin, and he becomes the performer on the stage.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, you know, his dad is so into it, but hey, that doesn't mean that it's not going to be successful in what they're doing. But the dad has a whole lot to say, and the dad goes in on arguments with the opposition, and it's like he is constantly, you know, fighting on, you know, verbally. Where there are times when he says you don't even see Devin. It's just him on the stage talking.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's tricky because, you know, having a son, you know what I'm saying, you having a son, like, you know, when you get on that stage, I think that he get lost in the moment sometimes, and in this era, in the social media era, everybody want that juicy gossip, that salacious, that sound bite that's gonna go viral. So a lot of people around him encourage it, and ain't nobody. It's seldomly people around that say, all right, let's dial it back. Let's bring the focus back on the Devin. Let's put it back. Like, nobody's there because everybody wants that salacious. But, you know, I salute him as a father for getting his son, you know, where he at. You know what I'm saying? Like, I guess hindsight will be 20/20 in regards to some of the things, because we know in this era, just like with it being social media and, you know, everybody wanting to tweet, we already know that if this fight goes, you know, south for them, we already know what's gonna happen. They're gonna run back, they're gonna run it down, they're gonna run back all the clips and make videos and all that. So, you know, heavy is the head. You know, I'm just looking forward to it, and like you said, man, it did, like, I am a little bit more excited than I was about the fight. At first I was like, man, I don't, you know, but they are doing a good job at building it. I don't, promotion wise, it's like, because I'm a hardcore, I tune in and watch those little things, so it kind of whet my appetite. But like commercially, it hasn't been much promotion. I don't, you know, as far as the numbers wise, which, you know, I'm really looking at, because I think some of that is what's needed in order for the Tank fight to happen. Because I don't want to just make it seem like Devin's gonna have to jump through another hoop to go get that other fight. But to justify the numbers, or if I was looking at it from a business perspective, he has to do some numbers. As a fan, I am excited about the fight. I hope that the fight is successful enough to even, you know, so that we can entertain it. But I'm not gonna look past this Lomachenko fight. The odds have Haney, you know, as a favorite right now. And if you were to pick Loma, especially by a stoppage or something like that, you stand to gain a lot of money. So the odds makers, the people in Vegas, you know, the people who, you know, make these contraptions to actually make money, they're favoring Devin going in right now.
Yeah, and I think that Devin being favored in this fight, I think that is the correct thing. You know, he's undisputed, he's younger, he's bigger. There's no reason why he shouldn't be favored to retain his belts in this fight. You know? But on the same token, he's fighting a credible fighter. You know, can Lomachenko get back to what we once knew he could be? I don't know. I don't know if he can get back to the fighter he was 10 years ago. You know? It's going to be an uphill battle for him. Because he's at least about 10 years older than Haney?
Exactly 10 years older than him.
Yeah, so, you know, you got youth against, he's still a seasoned fighter, but sometimes youth, when you are actually talented and you're the champ and you're 24 years old, sometimes that can be, you know, a big hill to climb because, you know, they say in the fight game, a fighter might age right in the ring. You know, you will see him in a fight, and after all of those hard wars, you actually see him age right in front of your eyes. Right when you think he can come back and muster up something, he just can't do it.
Yeah.
You know, so this is going to be that type of fight for Lomachenko. We're going to see what does he have left. Does he have it to go 12 hard rounds and have to pull this fight out in the championship rounds? You know? So it's going to be a big task for him. It's going to definitely be a big task.
All right, one last question before I wrap it up. What did you take away from Loma saying that in his mind he hasn't lost yet? Like, you know, is that just like a psychological thing that he's doing, or because he's basically saying in his mind? Because we hear this, I see this online where a lot of people saying he really beat Tio, or, you know, really beat Salido, you know, the two people that he lost. But what do you take away from that in his mind? You know, he's saying in his mind he hasn't lost yet.
Listen, maybe that's helping to build his ego up coming into this fight. And if that is, then maybe for him that's a good thing. But no, he's lost the fight before. Now, the very first fight that he lost, I didn't think that he lost that fight. Okay, it wasn't given to him, but he definitely lost the Tio not because Tio beat him, just beat him up. There were two longer lag periods in that fight where he just wasn't fighting.
Yeah, for the first 8 rounds, really, I mean, you could say for the first 7 rounds, he kept his hands in his pockets, and that's what I think is going to come into play in this fight. So this is where the chess match really comes for me. Is Loma put his hands in his pockets for at least the first 7th round. He didn't really get to clicking it. You can go back and look at the stats, the Compubox. He didn't get to click into the 8th round. So from 8 to 12, that wasn't enough for him to win that fight with Tio being as active. Now the thing is, Tio, especially at 35, was known to be able to have an equalizer. So that's what kind of neutralized Lomachenko's, you know, his aggressiveness or his willingness to open up. I don't know if he sees that in coming into this fight with Haney. So I think he's going to get off to, you know, a faster start. Now you can answer that and we can wrap it up. But what do you think about that aspect of it?
He definitely has to get at least an even kill fight. He cannot go into these championship rounds needing to win all of them. This fight has to be close. And if it is close, that means that he started fighting from round 1. He can't give away 4 or 5 rounds. not in a championship fight against someone of that youth and stamina. He's got to fight. He's got to fight from round one, and he's got to put forth an effort. Because if he goes into this fight in the last 3 rounds, he's got to win them. I don't think he's going to be able to do it, because if that fight gets around to the 10th round, and he hasn't established a good lead, I don't think he's going to knock Devin out. I don't think he'll stop him in the late rounds. I really don't. So for him to fight a fight like he did with T.O. would be disastrous.
Do you see any knockdowns in this fight?
It's a possibility there could be some knockdowns. These guys, they got fast hands, they move, and just because you get knocked down don't necessarily mean you were totally hurt. Sometimes speed on a punch, moving, angles, you know what I mean, can cause flash knockdowns, and it don't mean that you hurt. But I will tell you this, if somebody gets knocked down and they get up and they are still a little dazed and in trouble, with the accuracy that these guys punch with, somebody might get stopped. But if somebody get knocked down, they jump straight up, the referee start counting at 4, 5, 6, and they nodding their head, they ready to go, they okay. But if they get up slow and they still kind of bewildered, and they in a situation where they trying to survive the round, that could be catastrophic for either fighter if they get caught and gotta survive the round, because these guys are accurate punchers.
Yes, and this is what I'll say, and as I wrap it up, I'll say this. I think this fight, the first quarter of this fight, the first 3 rounds is pretty much going to dictate this fight. Now, if Loma can get off to a great start and start accumulating rounds, it's going to make Devin step outside his comfort zone the way he did. Well, I think more so with the Linares, he was dominating, but he chose to try to fight a fan-friendly style, and he found himself on the inside against Linares, and that's when he got caught. Now, what I can say is, if Devin gets off to a fast start and he starts racking up rounds on Lomachenko, he does have the style that will make it very hard for Loma to get back into that fight, because he fights behind the jab. He looks to evade more. He's gonna use his distance and use his legs, and it's gonna make Loma run around kind of like chasing him. Now, how the referee's gonna look at that point, as long as Devin still throws and not just evade, he could be in trouble. Now, if Loma gets off to a fast start and he starts racking up rounds, we might see something similar to what happened with Linares, whereas in that fight, because I think the rounds would be a lot more even in that fight. Even though, if Loma get off to a fast start and he's racking up the rounds where he's edging out, he's winning a little bit more. He's probably like going into that 10th, 11th, 12th. If Loma is ahead at that point, I think that Devin will have to do something out of desperation to kind of, get the reins back on that fight. And unlike when Linares had Devin hurt, he kind of allowed Devin to clinch. He really didn't do anything to stop it. Loma is very good at beating the clinch, and he punches off the clinch. And that's why Devin is trying to say that he's a dirty fighter, but I don't really say he's a dirty fighter. I mean, he will, he tried to hit, but he'll get desperate. Basically, I don't label him a dirty fighter, but I noticed that a lot of the fighters across the pond, they will do little rough tactics and things like that. That's the part of the game that they will implement, and that's how I see it goes. I think whoever gets off to the best start in this fight is probably going to win, and I think the first 3 or 4 rounds is really going to kind of tell you what's going to happen, and after that, we'll pretty much know. But I like the fight. I am, like you said, I am getting a little bit more excited about the fight, and the next thing that we will see, You know, they got the little events, like little press conferences and stuff like that. But the next thing of importance is the weigh-in. You know, so I mean, you know, we probably ain't gonna do a show about that, but I'll probably touch bases with you once we see the weigh-in. And I'm pretty sure you're gonna want to come over and watch this fight this weekend.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
We gotta watch it.
Yeah, this is definitely on the list.
All right. Well, I appreciate your feedback, man. You know, I just been working like a I can't say that. I just been working like a dog this last
right.
week, man. But we need to get that in.
You gotta keep it clean, man.
Yeah.
You gotta be politically correct.
Exactly. So we'll touch bases, man, and we'll go over the menu for this weekend and all that. But I'll touch bases with you once we see the weigh-in and get your take on that. You know, going into the fight.
Yes, sir. It's been a pleasure talking to you about this because, you know, I think this is going to be a good one, man. We're going to get a lot of questions answered, you know. So I'm looking forward to this fight, and you definitely will have a companion with you to watch this fight, and we can comment as we watch it.
All right, then. Well, I'll probably hit you up, later on this weekend, and we'll chop it up. But have a good evening, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Yes, sir. And you do the same.
All right.
All right.
All right, peace. Well, that was my old head K. You know, chopping it up about this Devin Lomachenko talk. You know, I think we're on to something, man, and I am a little bit more excited about it. I hope Devin do what he need to do. I wouldn't be surprised if Loma can turn back the hands of time slightly, but it's up to Devin to actually really squeeze himself like a sponge and demonstrate that greatness. But thanks for everybody who listened. Thanks for all the feedback that you give. Thanks if you comment on my videos, even if it's not the best, feedback. I welcome all feedback. There's no yes men over here. We try to analyze everything over here, and we just love to talk about boxing. But anyways, thanks for tuning in here at BodyWorkBoxing, where we don't take things for face value. We do that body work.